Mix the hues, create those fuses beauty make. Throw it on, let's see what happens. This is fun, it's pure passion. The colors are bright, it's a sight to see. If we can do it, you can too. Just follow me, like and subscribe. Custom Carving UK brand.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. And I got this new mould through, which is basically a sphere mould with a light attachment. And for some reason, I had it in my head that it would be fun to do a jellyfish with this mould rather than a typical sphere. And just to be a little bit different, I'm not going to be using two-part epoxy. I'm going to be doing this whole project in UV resin. So this is the sphere mold. I thought if I could find a way to sort of half fill it, that gives me a jellyfish body shape. Most of these items are actually bought from Teemu as an experiment, and I've had mixed results, to be honest, from Teemu. I've had some that are brilliant, and others that I wish I'd have paid the extra £3 or £4 and bought them from Amazon. So we'll see how we get on. But the end result here is absolutely amazing. How I got this jellyfish to look quite so realistic, I don't know. But we're going to do a demo. It took me about 6 hours in total, but I'm not going to make you guys sit through 6 hours. I'm going to try and shorten it as much as possible. So the things you're going to need is a sphere mold, some UV resin, and another sort of longish mold. These are the chameleon alcohol inks that we made in the previous video, which I thought would give me some really cool effects, because with a jellyfish I didn't want solid colors. I wanted sort of semi-translucent colors, and I thought if there was a way for me to do it, it might be a good way to use those chameleon alcohol inks as well. So it is a long process, but if you've got 5-6 hours spare, a full bottle of UV resin, the results are well worth it. So the first thing I'm doing is just pouring some of that UV resin into the sphere mold, not too much, a reasonably thin layer at the bottom, and then the plan is to sort of swirl it round and try and cure it with the light at the same time. So I just decided to add a little bit more because I wanted it to go all the way to sort of the halfway mark, because I think that's what would give me a realistic jellyfish sort of head or body or whatever you want to call it shape. So I'm just pouring it in. Probably, I would say, around about 30-40 ml here. So if you can see, it's just covering that base part, and now I'm trying to swill it around, and if you can just about make it out on camera, but it's literally the halfway point. Now the trick here is going to be to keep that turning whilst it's curing, so that a thin layer gets cured every time you keep swirling it around with the light. You want to make sure the whole thing is covered as well, halfway. Otherwise, any gaps will be clearly visible when you're finished. So you can just see where the resin's come up now. It's come up literally that halfway point, which is where I want it. And you've got to constantly keep it moving so that you don't have a bigger puddle in one part than another. That's going to be the difficult thing, even when we cure it. So just setting up my UV lamp on its side, because it'll be easier to do it with it on its side, using some baby wipes just to support it. And I'm going to just keep on putting it on 120-second cycles, whilst hopefully turning that resin, keeping it around that halfway mark so that it keeps that shape, and then hopefully we'll be able to demold. So here we go, guys. As you can see, it's just about keeping it constantly turning. And you know, I didn't want it didn't have to be perfect, because I don't think when I've seen a jellyfish, I've seen one that is perfectly the shape of half a sphere yet. But keep turning it around all the way around. You'll feel that the resin's still moving inside as it's turning around, but every time you're doing it, you're almost curing a separate thin layer. And you want to keep it all in that half. So I'm just going to speed this up so you don't have to watch it. And now that's done, I'm just trying to cure the whole thing through. Now I've got the resin where I want it. So again, just finding any which way I can to completely cover it and cure it for another 4 minutes on each side. So pretty confident that's now cured. Now to try and get it out of the mold. And I wish somebody had tell me if there is an easier way to demold these things, because these molds are not easy to demold at all. But make sure you leave something in comments if there's an easier way to demold these things, and I just don't know about it, or maybe it's just really difficult because I've got a thin sort of half filled layer. But let me know in comments. And there we go. It's finally out, slightly squished. So I just decided to, whilst it was still not fully solid, just bend it back into the shape that I wanted. And now, to give it a bit of sparkle, I put it back on the mold, first of all, because I thought it'd be easier than handling it. I'm just going to put some iridescent blue powder on it in sort of different shapes. I think you can also use nail powders for this, anything that's got a bit of sparkle that isn't too heavy. There we go. Happy with that. Now for the homemade chameleon alcohol inks, which I actually think are what have made this whole project look so realistic in the end. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the comments so you can see how we made them. And they work perfectly for this because the alcohol in it and the pigment, it doesn't leave too much pigment, but just enough that it's still visible, which I think gave us this really cool translucent effect. Now just going to go over it with the second colour, which is actually a pinky goldy chameleon powder originally, but it gave me almost the perfect shade, I think, for a natural looking jellyfish. So I'm just trying to, if you can see, start at the centre and then let the drips naturally form lines coming down the side of it, because when I've looked at jellyfish, that is the pattern that I seem to see. So that is all of the chameleon inks that I wanted to add to this. Now I'm just going to dry it all off and add a top layer. And I think that should seal the pigments in where I've got them, where I'm wanting them. And what I'm going to do here is rather than just coating the whole thing, I had the idea to actually start making almost a bit of a texture to start the tentacles from. And again, I tried to follow the lines that I'd made with the chameleon powder. So just using the tool initially to make roughly where I want those lines to come down the head or the body, whatever you want to call it, of the jellyfish, and then gradually adding more UV resin until the droplets start to form, and then as they start dripping down, catching them at just the right point with the UV lamp, which I can promise you is tricky, but you get the hang of it in the end. So it's just a case of keep on adding UV resin. You'll see the droplets start to naturally form because the shape that we've got. And then it's a case of, as long as there's some UV resin for them to drip down, creating whatever shapes you want and then curing it. So you can see that is pretty much the head and the body the way I wanted it, to be honest. Um, Looks like a jellyfish head. And you should just be able to see where the tentacles have started to form. Some of them I didn't think looked natural, so I clipped them off at this point and decided I was going to make some more natural looking ones. And why I chose to use nail clippers at this point rather than my pliers that were in front of me, I don't know, but I just didn't feel that they looked natural enough. So clipped them off and left almost a little lip where they'd started to form, and I thought I'd start to create some of my own. Now, this is the real time consuming process. As I say, I think this took me all in about 6 hours. Now, what I tried to do here was just experiment a little bit, and I thought, could I drop UV resin into water? So I've got a bottle of water here, that's all it is, and cure it quickly enough to make the tentacles because I thought that would look really natural. And after a few attempts, decided that was a complete failure. All it ended up with was UV resin on the bottom of the bottle. So I think if I'm going to try that again next time, what I'm going to do is try and find thicker, clear liquid to try it through because water is just too thin, and the UV resin, as soon as it dips past that surface, just sinks straight down to the bottom. So at this point, I decided to go back to what I know will work and gradually, I suppose, just sort of put the drips on manually with the UV resin and cure it. So just putting them where I want them. And I think it's important here not to try and do more than two or three at a time because otherwise, A, your lamp won't be able to give you enough coverage, and B, you won't be able to control it. And the whole point here is to try and control it so that you've got that tentacle just dripping off the bottom, then adding a drip to the top and letting the light cure it just as it's about to come off. And I think it made a really natural effect in the end. But I am going to speed this up sort of 20 times that you guys haven't got to watch a 2 hour video of me doing it. But the general technique is literally pour the line on where you want the tentacle to form, then add a few drips at the top of that tentacle, let it drip down. And I suppose as soon as it's come down, I found about 2 centimeters, then hit it with the UV light. And then just as it comes off, you'll find that the UV actually cures. Now, at this point, I just wanted a bit of a sanity check, I suppose, to make sure that it was working because I'd already invested I think it's about an hour and a half at this point. So just giving everything a final cure before I remove the shape from on top of the sphere mold. And as you can see, because I've done it on top of the mold, the great thing is these tentacles just peel straight off the silicon, which is what I wanted. And actually, they keep a bit of a round shape, which I actually thought really added to the realism of this particular jellyfish. As you can see, just peeling off those tentacles. At the minute, they are very clear, which again, I didn't think is what I wanted. Um, but we'll fix that in a second. But for now, just pulling them off, and you can already see that natural shape that's coming through. And I was actually quite excited at this point that it was actually going right for a change. But yeah, really happy with this basic shape that's already formed. And again, it's probably going to need a bit of cleaning up. Um, but I just thought, actually, let's have a look at this and make sure that I'm happy with the overall shape before we continue. Well, there I was just playing around with putting it on top of the bottle, but it seemed to move a lot on there. So I decided to put it back on the sphere mold and just add a few extra tentacles in because I felt there was just a few missing. And at this point, decided that for me, there was enough tentacles on the outer. Um, Again, they were all still clear at this point, so I wanted to fix that, and then I needed to start thinking about the inner tentacles, which on a jellyfish often look different to the outer tentacle. And at this point, I wanted to fix the look of those tentacles being so clear. So back I went to those chameleon inks that we made to just gradually drip them down those tentacles. Um, Again, to give almost enough pigment so that they don't look crystal clear, but not as, I suppose, not opaque was the look that I was going for. And actually, these chameleon alcohol inks that we made did a great job for that. And now that's done, just drying everything up because obviously it's alcohol inks with the UV lamp before I move on to the next stage. And it also keeps those pigments in place wherever they are. And I was really, really happy with the way it was starting to look at this point. So just giving it a full cure. I think I did it 2 or 3 times here on 120 seconds all the way around. And now start thinking about the inner. And I thought, well, I am going to need an inner to attach the inner tentacles to, and something probably with a bit of strength to actually support it when it's finished. So here I am again, just with the UV resin on the silicone mat there, creating almost like a 4-leaf clover. Because again, you get some jellyfish with that sort of 4-leaf clover shape. And I thought that would give it enough strength. So when I attach the legs or the inner tentacles, then I can UV resin that to the head or the body or the shell or whatever you want to call it, and it should be able to support the whole thing. Again, didn't want it to stay clear, so I just thought at this point use those chameleon alcohol inks we made again. And again, if you haven't seen how we did that, I will link in the comments the video on how we made them. So again, layering it up exactly the same way that we did the jellyfish. And now it's cured. I'm just testing that it does fit in the center, and it does. So that's a result. So now hopefully I can UV resin this to the head that we made, and then create some stronger supports and tentacles to actually stand it up. And at this point, again, wasn't completely happy with the color because it didn't fully match. So again, just adding more of those inks and curing. And at this point, I decided I wanted a bit more detail. So I decided to mix up some UV resin with this purple and pink pigment, which is almost fluorescent. And the hope was here that when it was under the light, it would really make those pop. So I wanted some of this color to go on that central thing to hopefully make it sort of glow through the piece. And some of it for around the general shape of the head. So I'm just mixing some of this purple and pink together. And there we go. I think it made a really cool color. So just using my normal sort of dotting tool to apply this initially on that centerpiece and give it a bit of a different colored glow. And at this point, decided that I wanted little dots going all the way around the inside of the jellyfish. And this was really a time consuming process because I could only work on one section, then use the lamp to cure it, and then move on to the next little inch section. So it was a very time consuming process, but I wanted that realism. And there we go. Hopefully you can just about make those out, the little pink dots all over the inside of the jellyfish. Now it was time to, I think, start thinking about those inner tentacles and how we're going to make them. So I just decided to dot some of my chameleon alcohol inks on the silicone mat. Again, using exactly the same colour scheme that I used for the jellyfish. And then the thought was here, pour some UV resin on it and cure it. And then hopefully the UV resin should pick up on that UV pigment, on the pigments that from the alcohol ink. And now just going to repeat that process because I'm thinking that I'm going to need at least 4, maybe 5 to be able to support everything. And at this point, decided to make sure it worked. It did, but again, I didn't feel they were particularly strong. So I'm just going to flip them all over now, put a thin line of UV resin on, and re-cure them. And if you're still with us at this point, guys, please like and subscribe to the channel. You would not believe what a difference it makes. And keep watching these videos till the end to help the algorithms. We've just gone over 6,000 subscribers. I would love to get to 10,000 within the next month or so. And it keeps me motivated to keep doing these projects and content for you guys. If there's anything in particular you want to see in resin as well, just let me know in comments what you want us to do and we will try it. And at this point, I still didn't feel they would be strong enough, so I flipped them over again, thin line of UV, and then cured. And at this point, decided that, yeah, I was happy with the strength. I felt that the 4 of them together would probably be able to support the head or the body or whatever you wanted to call it. And now it was just getting the colours to match exactly that jellyfish.
Mix the hues, create those fuses you make. Throw it on, let's see what happens. This is fun, it's pure passion. The colors are bright, it's a sight to see. If we can do it,
I basically repeated the process, created another 4 tentacles and some completely transparent ones and glued those all together. And then this is what I was left with. Really, really happy with this result. I think the natural look, the shimmer, the glow, everything just worked perfectly. And now to figure out how to put everything together. The fun part, you might say. So again, I'm just making sure that they'll fit and they'll give me roughly the height that I want as well, because I wanted it to look natural. And then decided that the best thing to do is probably use some UV resin, attach these longer tentacles to the base in the sort of flowing direction that I wanted, and then try and attach that base to the jellyfish. And again, this bit is a little bit finicky, but it worked. So just a couple of drops of UV resin on the end of each tentacle, put a few drops on the base plate or whatever you want to call it section as well, and then just cure it in place. And eventually it will be strong enough to just stand on its own.
mix the hues, create those views that beauty make. Throw it on, let's see what happens. This is fun, it's pure passion. The colors are bright, it's a sight to see. If we can do it, you can too. Just follow me, like and subscribe. Custom Carving UK, brand new. Powders, watch the colors swirl.
And at this point realised that the camera had stopped rolling. But basically all you missed is the fact that I did another 3 or 4 tentacles and 5 completely translucent ones as well. And this is what we ended up with. Really, really happy with how it looks. I think it looks very realistic. Let us know what you think in comments, whether you like it, whether you agree, or would you have done something different? Who knows? Now all I've got to do is figure out how to attach it to this base. But I did decide that the light base looked very basic, so I'm probably going to end up carving one for it anyway. So I just wanted to do something to be able to mount it. So decided to go with just a bit of epoxy resin, and decided to go with the blue shimmer powder as well. So I just thought if I put a circular shape, the same shape as the base in UV resin with the powder, and then I can just add some UV resin and cure it. And this is just translucent blue iridescent powder, but I'm sure you can use nail powders as well. As you can see, just going around it in a circle. And now pouring a layer of UV resin over the powder that I've just poured and curing it. Decided to attach 2 of the central tentacles to the base to make it a bit more secure. And then pretty straightforward, just cured it. And this is actually in a minute where things start to actually go wrong. There's always a few mistakes made in every project. So this bit's fine, peels off perfectly, and it seems to be the right shape. So I now had to think about how I'm going to attach it to that base, and I thought I could just UV resin it. Not realising that the light wouldn't penetrate through properly because of how the thickness of the wood, and didn't actually adhere very well in the end. So next time, if I was to do this again, I would just use glue straight off, because I kept on trying with the UV, and I thought by adding a little bit more, that might just do it, but it didn't work. So I ended up adding some No More Nails in the end, and that worked a treat. But just to let you guys know as well, we've now opened our Etsy shop, which is Carvings and Epoxy UK on Etsy. So look it up. If there's any of the pendants you liked, by all means support the channel and buy one. But this is the finished jellyfish, and I hope you'll agree, it is amazing. And again, if we can do it, so can you. Absolutely amazed with how well this turned out, with just a bottle of UV resin, you know. But if you've liked it, please like and subscribe to the channel, hoping to get us to 10,000 subscribers over the next month or so, and it will keep this content coming. So thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.